On this week's edition of Connecticut Naturalist, the yellow-spotted salamanders make their migration to the vernal pools by the hundreds. Jefferson salamanders also join the party in the pools. We have a surprise appearance by a rare four-toed salamander. More nature trivia with reporter Azizi Bonnet. A sparrow gathers grass to build a nest. A baby snapping turtle emerges from hibernation. A male swan gets defensive at the reservoir. Will has a new underwater housing for his camera. We test it out on the snails at the snail pond. All this and more on this week's edition of Connecticut Naturalist. And now, here's your host. Hello friends, I'm Will Michael and you're watching the Connecticut Naturalist. I'm standing on the mighty shore of a vernal pool. During the week, the yellow-spotted salamanders made their annual nocturnal pilgrimage to the pool. It was an amazing event. There were hundreds of salamanders. We were also joined by the Jefferson salamander and a surprise visit from a four-toed salamander. Let the review of the amphibian migration begin. We're driving down the road towards the vernal pool. We have to be careful. We're on the lookout for salamanders that may be crossing the road. Now here's one. So this is a female, and she's on her way to the pool, so we're going to follow her. There are 365 nights in a year. On 364 of those nights, Long Ridge Road in Danbury is no different than any other road. People drive home after a day's work on a road that cuts between the Eureka Reservoir and Mountain Pond. But on one special night, in early spring, Long Ridge Road is not only a byway for automobiles, it also is a highway for traveling yellow-spotted salamanders. When the first heavy rains of spring fall over Connecticut, thousands of these salamanders emerge from deep underground and begin an exodus towards vernal pools to breed and lay eggs. The yellow-spotted salamander is a member of the mole salamander family. Mole salamanders inhabit tunnels as deep as 2 feet under the soil. They spend almost all their lives underneath the earth. Most people never have an opportunity to see a mole salamander. The yellow-spotted salamander is nocturnal, making it even more elusive. Sometime between late March and early April, during warm, heavy, nocturnal rainfall, these salamanders emerge from their underground labyrinths and crawl along the forest floor. They are on a direct path to vernal pools and will cross any obstacle in their way. Roads are the biggest obstacle the salamanders face. Each year, many perish on the road as motorists crush them while they are crossing. Dr. Hank Gruner, Vice President of the Science Center of Connecticut and Director of the Connecticut Amphibian Monitoring Project, CAMP for short, explains, salamanders are more sensitive to road impact and move slowly, so road mortality is high. CAMP is a 15-year study of 15 square-mile blocks at random locations throughout the state. Each site has different types of land. In urbanized blocks, yellow-spotted salamanders are declining due to the number of roads. CAMP studies show that 24 to 25 cars per hour on a road largely increases salamander mortality. There's salamanders everywhere. I hope you're not salamandered out because I'm going to show you so many that tonight when you go to sleep you'll see yellow spots running across your eyes. According to Gruner, some people have suggested salamander tunnels along the road, but this would require funneling them in from vast portions of woodland. This would cause more predation and is not helpful to the salamanders. Road curbs also cause problems because water tends to form streams that rush down along the curbs. The salamanders try to climb over the curb and the current sweeps them down into storm drains. Gruner says the best solution is public awareness through education. Camp hosts meetings, workshops, and visits schools to educate the public. We promote signage and speed bumps on roads that salamanders must cross to get to their vernal pools. Thank you, Dr. Gruner. Despite the danger faced by the salamanders, hundreds still arrive in the vernal pools. A soft jelly-like coating surrounds amphibian eggs. Without water, the eggs would dehydrate. Amphibians have a two-stage life cycle. When the juveniles hatch, they have gills and breathe oxygen underwater. When they mature, they lose their gills and breathe oxygen from the air using lungs. The yellow-spotted salamander ranges from 6 to 8 inches in length. They are black with several bright yellow spots lining their backs. They have what appears to be a tropical coloration, but they are native to our Connecticut forests. Also arriving at the vernal pool are the Jefferson salamanders. The Jeffersons actually arrive slightly earlier than the yellow spotteds. But tonight, when the yellow spotteds arrive, they inhabit the pool together. The Jeffersons are currently under close watch by herpetologists and scientists. The Jefferson salamander is an animal of much concern. The Jefferson is interbreeding with the blue-spotted salamander, creating a hybrid species. Scientists are wondering what's going to happen with this hybrid species. As of now, the hybrid is sterile. So when the Jeffersons interbreed with the blue-spotted, their offspring can no longer reproduce. Some of the Jeffersons correctly breed with other Jeffersons and have offspring that are able to carry on the line. Scientists are wondering, will the Jefferson breed itself into extinction, or will the number of Jefferson to Jefferson breeding pairs be enough to sustain the species? Thirdly, will the hybrid species develop the ability to reproduce, thus creating a new species? It's the study of evolution in our present-day environment. There's salamanders all over the place. Spring peepers are coming out. This is the night of the amphibian emergence. It's incredible. I've got to walk around to the other side of the vernal pool. So while I'm getting my bearings straight, dodging the amphibians, stay tuned for a Connecticut Naturalist trivia question with Azizi.
It's time for trivia with Azizi.
Hi, I'm Azizi Bonnet with this week's trivia question. Can you identify the first flower of spring? The answer may surprise you. Here's a hint. I wouldn't recommend putting this flower in a spring bouquet. Stay tuned and I'll be right back with your trivia answer.
Azizi will return in a few minutes with the answer to the question. Out here at night, I'm using this Q-beam to film the salamanders. The beam emits a high-powered light, but it disturbs the salamanders. So what we're going to do now is turn off the light from the camera. Just 1 minute. There we go. And turn off the Q-beam. Turn off this Q-beam. And we're going to televise the salamanders using the night vision and see if we can observe their activity when they're not being disturbed by the lights. Whenever we have the light shining onto the salamanders, they immediately go underneath the leaves. In some shots, I can get the mass of salamanders together, but when I first turn the light on, there's even more than you see on camera. Now I'm using my night vision setting, seeing if I can observe the activity without them knowing that they're being filmed. We have super night vision. That's what's giving this shot the slow motion effect. It's hard to film out here with the moisture and the rain. I have a plastic bag over my camera. Sometimes I stand underneath an umbrella so the camera won't get wet. You'll see that now the rain is off and on, periods of downpour, then it rains lightly, then it totally stops. The umbrella helps when it's raining hard because I can hold the umbrella over the water and film through the water. That way the drops don't distort the image with all the ripples. But the best is when the rain ceases and there's no ripples on the surface of the water, so I can film straight through. Alright friends, we'll temporarily take a break from the salamander patrol, and here comes the answer to the trivia question with Azizi.
All the animals in the forest love Azizi.
Hi, I'm back with your answer. The first flower of spring doesn't smell sweet. It's a very foul-smelling flower from the skunk cabbage plant. The skunk cabbages bloom in March. The foul odor attracts flies and other early spring insects. Well, that's your trivia question for the week. I'm Azizi Bonnet. Enjoy the spring. I'll see you next week. Have fun.
All right, we're back by the vernal pool again. We've got fantastic news. Not only are the Jeffersons and yellow spotteds out tonight, but we have a four-toed salamander. This is the first time I've ever seen a four-toed, so this is incredible. This is the first time I've ever filmed a four-toed salamander. This salamander is rare in Connecticut. You'll notice it's much smaller than the Jeffersons or the yellow spotteds. The four-toed salamander does not lay its eggs in vernal pools. Usually it lays eggs in rotten stumps or in sphagnum moss. When the larvae hatch out of the eggs, they wriggle down the sides of the moss or the stumps and fall into the water, where they live out their aquatic larval stage. We're back here with the yellow spotted salamanders again. As you can see in this picture, there's hundreds of them. But the four-toed salamander is hard to find and is currently endangered in Connecticut. I don't know, friends. I think from being out here so long, I'm turning into a salamander. There are hundreds of salamanders in a small pool. It's a natural phenomenon that many people are unaware of. We're not finished yet, friends. It's a menagerie of yellow-spotted salamander activity. You may hear some cars whizzing by in the distance. They're missing this amazing event. So many people are unaware that this is happening in their own backyards. I urge everyone to be careful when they're on the roads during the spring while it's raining. You never know, you might be running into spring peepers, yellow-spotted salamanders, jeffersons. I'm a little distracted, it's hard for me to talk, but whew, it's just incredible. Yellow-spotted salamanders are amphibians, and it is essential that they arrive in the vernal pools to lay their eggs and breed. Males arrive at the pools first and compete for territory. The speckles of white that you see on the bottom of the pool are spermatophores deposited by the male. When the females arrive, the males try to attract the female to their particular spermatophore. The female captures the spermatophore and deposits her eggs. C. Rodney Dow, lifelong environmental activist, Sierra Club member, and bibliophile, shares his thoughts on the salamanders with us.
But in the world of nature, the salamanders also set up their schedule. There's a certain day during the spring, temperature, rain is just perfect, and they make their move, the exodus, from the forest to the vernal pools. And throughout the year, I've traveled the world, but there's only a few things that I look forward to during the year, and the salamanders is at the top of the list. Mother Nature, the rite of spring. Igor Stravinsky portrayed it the best in his famous musical passage.
Vernal pools are special bodies of water with unique characteristics. They contain water only during a portion of the year. Melting snow and rain fill depressions in the earth with water, creating pools during the spring. They dry up in the summer and usually return again in the fall when the ground freezes. This is important to salamanders because these bodies of water lack fish. Salamanders seek out pools without fish because if fish are present, they will devour the salamander eggs and juveniles. Yellow-spotted salamanders are amphibians, and it is essential that they arrive in the vernal pools to lay their eggs and breed the pools first and compete for territory. At this time, I would like to read a poem that was submitted by one of my viewers. The afterglow of sunset lingered long into the cloud-filled night of dampened, delightful drizzle. There, in the far corner of the blackened skyline, the milky patch of sky, while into the woods we friends of varied generations sauntered in nature's inimitable goodness. Over the woods, filled with glossy, burnished, soggy, felled leaves of autumns past, and with deliberate and most contemplative gaits, reached our short destination of vernal pools. Under the intense and unfailing glow of flashlights and a carefully arranged video camera, the sun-yellowed spotted salamanders darted amidst the soggy leaves, emerging and re-emerging, as we friends of nature blended with the music of the night, of tree frogs, spring peepers, and on the canvas of this wooded night, and with the cool aromas of all these woods. That was submitted by Robert Garavel, who accompanied me on one of my salamander excursions. The light of the Q-beam reflects off the rocks on the other side of the pool. Look at that mass of salamanders, all the bodies wiggling about the same area. It's exciting when they come up for air. Some people sometimes ask if salamanders bite. No, they're harmless. When handled, sometimes they secrete a sticky fluid as a defense mechanism. When they're underground during the year, they inhabit mole tunnels or burrow in the mud, dig their own tunnels. Prime habitat for yellow-spotted salamanders is in forests that has glacial rock deposits from the last ice age. Although the salamander poses no harm to humans, they eat insects and other small invertebrates. Just imagine, in vernal pools all over the state, hundreds of yellow-spotted salamanders are on their march. There's millions of them. All year, they're never seen. One of the most secretive animals we have. Well, we've had about enough for one night. There's still a lot more footage I have, but we'll save that for another show. Now it's time to go home, get some sleep, and see what we can find tomorrow during the daytime. I was out until 2 a.m. filming the salamanders, but you don't always have to travel far to see animals. Just from sitting in your own backyard, you can frequently see amazing wildlife. Here's a few shots of some animals that visit my yard. In my backyard, we put out seeds to feed the birds. This pair of ducks, flying overhead in the neighborhood, spotted the seeds somehow, and now they come regularly into the middle of the yard and feast away on the seeds. This sparrow is busy gathering grasses to build his nest. It looks like he has a mustache. If you have any animals in your backyard that you think would be good for the program, feel free to contact me. Now I'm on my way to the reservoir to see what's happening with this nice warm weather. It's a warm sunny day at the reservoir, and here we find a baby snapping turtle. This turtle is actually a year old and hatched last year and survived his first winter. Now with this warm weather, he's emerged from hibernation and he'll begin looking for food and shelter. That's a small turtle. He has a long road of survival ahead of him. There he is against the rocks. From a distance, you'd never know there was a turtle there. Extremely camouflaged. Now as I'm sitting looking at the turtle, this male swan has interpreted me as a predator or an intruder. And he's squawking, it's a unique sounding call, trying to ward me off because on the far side of the reservoir, the female swan is sitting on her nest. While we were out at the reservoir, I received a package. This is an underwater housing for my video camera. The door opens, the camera goes inside, and it closes and seals airtight. These controls enable me to operate the camera from outside while the camera's underwater. I wish I had this while the salamanders were out, but we'll have to wait till next year. But now let's go and test it out in the Old Quarry Nature Center at Snail Pond. I'm supposed to meet arachnologist Andrew George. Andrew and I were on our way down to Snail Pond. Andrew's foot came close to a baby garter snake. This tiny snake is active now that it's warm. He's taking in the heat from the sun. Look at the color patterns. They're camouflaged among the leaves. With this warm weather, many snakes are basking in the sun. In the morning, it's easy to find snakes. Andrew George is back in town. You may remember him from the Alaskan special. He's holding that snake, the little garter snake. Now you can see how small it is in relation to the human hand. Now I'm on my way down to Snail Pond. Andrew had an appointment that he had to attend. Ah, here we are, Snail Pond. What creatures lurk underneath that can be exposed for the first time with the underwater camera? Okay, I've never operated this before. Now here we're underwater, and there's a snail floating on the surface, and now we're looking up from underneath. It's a world of life under the water, and now that we can get the camera underneath, we can expose the beauty. Here's a snail on a log. This pool is filled with snails, hundreds, thousands. That's why I call it Snail Pond. Feeding on the bacteria and algae that grow. But when you look at it underwater, it doesn't seem so dirty anymore. Look closely, there's a tiny tadpole swimming across the lens. Now here on the surface is a ribbon snake. The ribbon snake is sometimes confused with the garter snake. They look similar, but the ribbon snake does not have the colorful patterns between the stripes. This was my first time using the underwater camera, and look at this frog, he jumped on my lens. Next time we'll get much better shots, but we're out of time. Here's a tent caterpillar nest. Inside, many tent caterpillars have hatched. Now they're crawling around the outside of the nest. Soon they'll make their way into the treetops and begin devouring the tree leaves. Most people view tent caterpillars as pests. In past years, they've caused many problems as their numbers have gone out of control. But now things are getting better. I never wear a watch, but from judging the position of the sun, I can see we're out of time for this week's episode. I'm Will Michael, and you've been watching the Connecticut Naturalist. See you next week, and here comes another animal music video from the Connecticut Naturalist soundtrack.
Tommy Turtle, sitting in the sun on a summer's day. You are relaxing on a log in the month of May. Tommy Turtle, napping in the leaves where May apples bloom. You know, when the fruit is ripe, it's the month of June. You say you're a slow-moving fellow, always taking your time. But don't rush through life, that is your advice. Every day is divine, my friend. Tommy Turtle, where do you hide when it's cold outside? Underground, you hibernate the months of the winter time. Tommy Turtle,